Here's why I did it. Here's how I did it, what I've learned. And then you don't repeat a mistake. If you repeat a mistake, it's a choice. You don't want to choose to do that same thing again. And so it's learning from those mistakes and failures, but also accepting that it's a gift.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Alok Trivedi, aka Dr. Rewire. Thanks for joining me on this week's podcast. And this week I've got someone super interesting that you guys are going to love because he's an entrepreneur, but he's been able to build 3 unique companies. And he's a contributor for Profit Magazine. He's been featured on Entrepreneur. He's constantly writes for Forbes Magazine. He's been on Dr. Phil. He's been featured on Undercover Boss. He's an entrepreneur that you're going to want to hear from. And I'm really interested to learn more about his psychology because on this podcast, what we focused heavily on is the psychology of what it takes for someone to rewire their thinking and move forward with their life. So I want to welcome today Brian Scudamore. Brian, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Dr. Rewire, I love that.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It's like, we sat down and naming is probably I see it as one of your highlights in your businesses. I'm sure with all the accolades that you do, but we saw it and said, what is it that we do? We help people rewire who they are. And from a science-based standpoint and help people heal from that. So one of my friends actually came up with it. It wasn't me. It was a buddy of mine that came up with it. So let's dive into your world a little bit. I want to know, how did you dive into the world of entrepreneurship for yourself?
I think I was a little bit of me was born an entrepreneur. I grew up in a family with some entrepreneurs. My grandparents ran an army surplus store in San Francisco, where I was initially raised as a kid. I used to go work at their surplus store every Christmas holiday, every weekend, whenever I possibly could. And I loved that game of business, taking care of customers, selling product, just having fun, restocking the shelves, whatever it was. This little store brought me to life. And there was a spark that they lit in me that I think I've carried forth my entire life. My grandparents taught me that it's all about people. And my grandparents had this store in a dodgy neighborhood in San Francisco, and you'd get homeless and people coming in begging for money. And my grandparents would never give them money, but they give them what they really needed was an ear, some love. And it was fun watching them build a community with this store. And I knew it was something that I wanted to ultimately do.
I love that. So it's interesting. Like I think a lot of entrepreneurs either go through major hardships to become an entrepreneur, or it's kind of been inbred. They see someone in their family doing it. You were mentioning like just offline here that your dad was a doctor, and did he work in the hospital system or in that world?
Yeah, my dad is still a doctor. He's a liver transplant surgeon, and it was busy guy. Yeah. And I watched what he did, and I knew the passion was there. So I certainly wanted to emulate passion for my career and the people I work with, but I did not want to work the hours that he works. And late nights, middle of the night, constantly getting phone calls, emergencies. He's saving lives, and that's important. Great work, but not something I wanted to follow in his footsteps.
It's interesting because I think there's 2 facets of it, right? The side that what your grandparents taught you and to be able to help people, connect with people and talk to people, but also seeing the side of your dad and watching him and what you didn't want out of that as a lifestyle. I think that's important as well. That shapes people. And people don't think about that all the time. They don't talk about what they didn't want and what they learned from their parents that they didn't want to experience.
Yeah, I think it's important. Absolutely. I think in anything in life, you want to understand what you're good at, what you're bad at, what you want, what you don't want. Even if I look at my life today, and today I'm wearing my living the dream hat because I feel like that's what I get to do each and every day. I'm working in my own area of unique ability as a CEO and founder with our 3 brands. And I have a president. I have someone who's like this 2 in the box, yin to my yang. And he's great at the stuff that I'm bad at. And so it's this partnership of you find someone that can fulfill the role of where you're weak and what you don't want to and don't like to do. I don't love hiring. I don't love the financials. I don't love managing people. He loves that and he excels at it.
How did you get to that point in your business? And I think this is what you're talking about is so interesting because I think a lot of businesses, they get stuck there that they have to be the one in control, especially CEOs in the early stages. They're the ones who have to lead and run and control, and to relinquish that control is a huge, huge psychological aspect. How did you go through that for yourself?
It's a great question. So when I started 1-800-GOT-JUNK with one pickup truck, hauling junk as a way to pay for college, I did everything. I hauled the junk. I took the phone calls from customers. I did the marketing. I did it all. And as the company built and grew, it took 10 years actually to get to a million, 8 years to get to a million in revenue. It took a long time. To scale beyond that $1 million level, I couldn't wear all hats. I couldn't be running around frantically trying to do it all. I had to scale, and that meant scaling my own talents and abilities and filling gaps with my weaknesses. So I had to find people to do payroll. I had to find people to answer the phones in the call center. I had to take myself away from everything. And to your question on control, I found it liberating to give up control, because I understood that I could find people that did things better than I did. So if we're out there getting PR, and we would get out there and pitch everything, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Oprah. I didn't land us on Oprah. I considered myself the king of pitching press and doing a great job at it. But we were able to find someone who was more committed, more dedicated to PR than I was, Tyler Wright, who landed us on the Oprah Winfrey Show. So relinquishing control to someone, it's easy when you know you can find people that are smarter and better than you. If you're the smartest person in the room, what do they say? You're in the wrong room. So
That's right.
It really has worked for me. I do not mind giving up control.
Did you find, was there a certain point in your business where you said, hey, look, at this revenue level, I say, I relinquish this? Because I've talked to different business owners and CEOs, and especially in the exit game. Um, and I'd love to talk to you more about that as well, because you've built the companies, you've built the brands, and now you're still holding on to the business. Where a lot of people talk about, with private equity, $31 trillion last year was given in private equity, and a lot of people are talking about exiting, and you're staying in the game. So was there a point where, like, was it 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, where you said, you know what, I'm going to give up that full CEO or that president space?
I think it was just the point of realizing from my franchise owners. So as a franchisor, we've got 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We've got Wow One Day, where we paint people's homes in a day, and we've got Shack Shine, windows, gutter cleaning, power washing. All three of our home service brands are in the space where we're doing exceptional things. We've got great people. And to build and scale all of those, franchise partners depend on us to build out great systems to really help them scale the business. I couldn't do it. I was getting that feedback, very frankly, from our franchise partners. Brian, you're the vision guy. You see the future, but you don't know how to take us there. So I needed to find someone who could be our implementer, Eric Church, who's been 10 years. The guy's unbelievable, amazing friend and partner. He was able to help be the executor of all that I would see. So when you talk about rewiring brains, I mean, I'm great at helping people rewire and think about new possibilities. And you look at this sign over my right shoulder, the Walt Disney quote, it's kind of fun to do the impossible. I love inspiring big possibilities in people, but you need an executor. And so giving up control, finding Eric, I think it's what every franchise owner needs. And I was glad they gave me the feedback that Brian, you're not the guy.
It's so important to get that feedback from your customers. And I think that when you're in small business, you don't really want to hear that. I think a lot of people I'm going to do what I do, but you don't listen to the customers. But growth takes the feedback of people. And I say this in the rewiring aspect, right? Everything is feedback. In our body, our human body, everything is feedback. And how we build feedback is important. As a business, it grows independently, but how we use that feedback is important. When you built these brands, did you, you built 1-800-GOT-JUNK first, correct?
Yeah,
And that took
8 years to get to a million, 10 years before we franchised. And then things just started to grow like crazy. You told me offline you're from Toronto. Toronto was our first franchise. And Paul Guy,
really? Okay.
Paul Guy, who started that business, he drove a truck from Vancouver, where we were based, all the way to Toronto, started the first franchise. And while it took me 8 years to get to a million, he did it in his first year, which told me, okay, I've got a recipe. I've got a formula here now that we can really replicate.
I love that. And so, as you're developing this franchise, what made you shift to a franchise model? Number one, what was the thinking around that? And then, what are some of the obstacles you went through as in building franchise? Because it's not a simple process. I've looked into it; it's not easy.
It's not easy at all. It's a very complicated, challenging business.
Yeah.
People think, oh, okay, if I want to grow quickly, take a company public, go franchise, whatever it might be. But both those things require a huge lift, lots of money, lots of smart people, and most people fail at it. So the way I got into franchising, I think I was really inspired by Ray Kroc, who built McDonald's. He took the
Yep.
McDonald's brothers recipe and just blew it up in an amazing way, built systems, processes, and helped the partners scale. I loved what he did. And the passion for helping others grow, watching them build something for themselves. They say 2/3 of North Americans have the dream of business ownership, but how many actually take that leap? Sometimes it's a franchise, a proven recipe that helps unlock for someone the possibility where they go, I can do that. From a rewire brain perspective, I imagine there's a barrier there for people that is just mental. And how do you shift that and go, you know what? I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. So people will follow our franchise partners and go, if Paul Guy can start 1-800-GOT-JUNK in Toronto and build now a $20 million business, starting in debt, not having the know-how, but being taught the systems, then maybe I can do it. So it's helping people unlock that possibility in future they see in themselves. You ask about roadblocks. I mean, every roadblock imaginable. When you get franchise partners in a brand who want to defect and leave because you're not making their business work for them, you're trying, but it's a struggle. We depend on them, they depend on us. It can be a big challenge. Franchising isn't easy. If you start out, people will come to me and say, how soon should I franchise my business concept? And I say, if you haven't figured out every part of the proven recipe, you're not ready to franchise. And in my mind, that takes at least 5 to 10 years.
That's really impressive to understand that, right? Because everything has to be scalable. And I think that's what it comes down to in a franchise system. You got to have every procedure written, every system written out. And so when you did the first franchise, what was Paul Guy goes out there and does $1 million in a year. And you think, okay, here's where we're at. We've got this thing. How many franchises does 1-800-GOT-JUNK have now?
150.
150.
Yeah.
What were the challenges that went from 1 to 10 and 10 to 20? Because that's a different scale of business as well, I'm sure, as you're growing more and more franchises off of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you think of kids, for example, I've got 3 kids, and when you watch the first one grow up, everything's new. When you watch the second and the third, you're like, I've seen this before. So if I look at Shack Shine, one of our brands, the baby in the family, Shack Shine's going through some of the challenges that 1-800-GOT-JUNK went through in the early days. And it's normal. It's like a kid crawling, learning to walk, they fall, they get bruised. I mean, these things happen. The challenges at, say, 10 franchises is it's unproven. Nobody knows if this is really going to work. No franchise partners are making enough money yet, haven't hit the home run, haven't done the Paul Guy sort of very quick growth. Once you start to figure out the revenue model and things start to work and you get closer to 50, where we are with Shack Shine, the big challenge there is you have too many people doing things differently. So even though you give the system and the processes and say, this is the Shack Shine way, people will try things differently. They'll try and reinvent. And there's this sort of pulling the system back and going, okay, of all the new innovative things we've tried, let's package this and go, this is what works. So it's bringing everyone back into the consistency of this is the one way. I mean, again, think back to McDonald's. You go to McDonald's in Tulsa, you go to McDonald's in Toronto, you go to McDonald's in any city in the world, pretty much, you're getting that same consistent hamburger, cheeseburger, fries. They've got it figured out. And is it the world's greatest burger? Of course not. But is it the world's most consistent burger? Absolutely.
100%. Couldn't agree with that more, right? Everyone knows that it's not the best burger. Yet the lines are still out the door. And people still keep going back. It's kind of crazy. And I remember with McDonald's, they had that whole health thing in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? How it's unhealthy for you. And then they came out with the salads and all this stuff that it hasn't stopped them.
No.
It hasn't stopped them in any capacity, from a business perspective, at least. Now, I'm not condoning eating McDonald's as a health perspective by any capacity.
Of course. Yeah.
But from a health perspective, absolutely not. But let's talk about, how did you come out with these names? Because your business is the 3 brands, as you said, is 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Wow, One Day Painting, and Shack Shine. These are unique names and a unique naming methodology. Can you kind of share your ideas on marketing around that? Because they're different.
Yeah. Very proud of our brands. People buy brands that make them feel a certain way. I mean, look at the cosmetics industry. Like, does it really make a difference? Like it's a feeling, it's an emotion around that perfume or whatever you might be putting on your skin. And many products are very similar, except what differentiates them is the brand and how the brand makes us feel when we wear it, show it, and so on. And so you can take Wow One Day Painting. We wanted people to feel that feeling when you come in the door, when your entire home has been painted in a day, instead of the 2 weeks with someone moving in and taking over your house. One day, little disruption, we flash mob paint the house, no compromise in quality. We wanted people to feel what I felt when I first experienced that was, wow, my house is transformed and it was only a day. So the emotion behind our company, Wow One Day Painting, it's a feeling people are buying. The look and feel of the smiley wow logo. People connect with that. We've had franchise partners, a true story, who have bought our Wow One Day Painting franchise because they were attracted to the brand. They didn't even know exactly when they first connected with it, with what it was, but it drew them in. Shack Shine, we say that your home will love you. Your home can't love you, but it's that feeling of, it's so clean and shiny. We've done such a great job. Christmas lights on the house, all the things we do in the house detailing space that customers are like, wow, like my home shines. So we're very careful in the words we choose and the names we pick that have to evoke an emotion and connect. And then 1-800-GOT-JUNK was the first of course. And that was really a play on words with, there was the Got Milk campaign, the Dairy Association in the United States in the 90s. And I saw this Got Milk and it inspired Got Junk, 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It asked the question, do you have junk? Great. Like, it's the relief you get when that junk is gone. Simple brands, but they all work.
What's really cool, and I really like the Wow One Day Painting, right? Because you've also created what some would call an irresistible offer, right?
Mhm.
In that, not necessarily in the pricing standpoint,
Yep.
but people don't like, what is the biggest agony people go through in painting? Is it the weeks at a time moving the furniture, and to be able to do that faster, right? I always say that you want something to be, you want your competitors, whatever you can do against your competitors, but do it faster. People want faster, and they'll pay more for faster inside of that as well. I'm sure that that's an experience that you're seeing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can imagine, disruption is such a difficult part of our lives. Look at the
Yeah,
pandemic right now, everything's disrupted,
yeah,
and we find other ways around. And I think there's a lot of innovation that will come out of, be birthed from this pandemic. But if I look at Wow One Day Painting, the disruption of 2 days, 5 days, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, it's a pain. Why not pay a little bit more to have someone come in and, as I said, flash mob paint your home? Now, there's no compromise in quality, because here's the analogy. Everyone knows you can paint one room with one person in a day. If it's a big room, it might need two people. So if you take your house and you've got one or two people in every room, they're not bumping into each other. It doesn't feel busy. It's just coordinated,
right.
precision coordinated work done in a day. And the customer walks out of their house and they're like, wow, this is unbelievable.
So intelligent, so intelligent. I love the way that you've come across it. It's brilliant inside that. Your children, how old are your kids?
They range from 10 to 17.
Any of them on the entrepreneurial path, you think?
It's interesting. I think they've got traits for sure, some more than others. But one question I've never asked my kids is, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Ah,
I want them to be happy. That's, I think, what every parent wishes. And choosing for someone, trying to encourage them to be a certain career, I don't think is happiness. To me, it's show them experiences and opportunities in the world. We as a family went down to an impoverished area of town, and Christmas time, I took my oldest, who was 8 at the time, and we were giving out Christmas little care packages to the homeless and to drug users, and walking down alleys. You know, how do you do something that has an impact on your kids, that helps them see, what difference do I want to make in the world? We went and built schools in Kenya and India, and we've done some things that we've been really fortunate and blessed to be able to do. But I just want to open my kids' eyes to opportunity for them. What's their gift in this world? And let them decide. So my eldest is actually going to business school next year. So whether that turns into a management role or a marketing role or an entrepreneurial role, I don't know. And I'm trying not to steer her in any way. It's just, yeah, what do you want to be? It is not a question I want to ask. It's how do you want to show up in the world, and what difference do you want to make?
that's such a great question. Um, I had a chance to listen to Naveen Jain, the billionaire, the Viome guy, the 5 Hour Energy, if you're familiar with him. And he said something that was really profound, the way that he raised his kids. He said that it's not about what you do. He goes, success is defined by how many people you impact. He goes, so
Mm,
the question that I always taught my kids is not what you're going to do, but how many people are you going to impact?
right.
And,
It's
and I
true.
love that. It's so true, right? It's so true. And this is why, like the entrepreneurial mindset, the rewiring towards that. I always say that someone who's in a state of employeehood, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing right or wrong in any capacity. But the more service you want to impact, the more service you make about others, the more you move to entrepreneurship. It's just a simple process inside of it.
Well, there's such a freedom to create in entrepreneurship. You can say, what's my impact? What do I enjoy doing? How do I enjoy showing up in the world? And then how do you design a business that fits that? One of the things I love most about what we do with our brands, we get to connect with people and watch them grow. And so I love being social. I love connecting with our franchise owners and our people in our head office. And we love developing and coaching people to be better people, better leaders, better managers. And so I've created the ultimate business for my creative outlet.
Yeah.
And I think that's what entrepreneurship often lets you do.
Y- I agree with you inside that. You've coined a word for new entrepreneurs called entrepreneurship. Can you tell me a little bit more of what that means?
Yeah, it's interesting. We were trying to find a way to explain franchising that might connect with people. Franchising is this proven recipe. Some people want to bake a cake, they'll Google and find a recipe, or some people will bake one from scratch. Most people want a proven recipe. They want to get it right the first time.
For
Give me a
sure.
5-star recipe, step by step, tell me how to do it, and then I can tweak it from there if I want to. So to me, entrepreneurship is an entry point into the world of entrepreneurship that's easier. It's entering into a space where you go, oh, how do I run my own business? Where do I get the idea? How do I come up with processes and systems? Well, it's all here for you. And so we'll get franchise owners like a Paul Guy in Toronto, who starts with Toronto and then adds on New York and then adds on Charlotte and then adds on Australia. Like the guy owns, I think, almost $100 million worth of revenue,
Wow.
starting with $25,000 in debt to his brother, right? He's built this. He hasn't gone out to have to try and find an idea. Someone who spoke at our conference last year, our big annual franchise convention, was Shaquille O'Neal,
Hmm.
and big NBA superstar. Everyone knows him. And I got to connect with him and have some chats. And we connected even after our conference. And I found it fascinating that Shaq took what he was best at, building teams of people and helping them win. After basketball, he wanted to get into the world of business. He didn't want to create an idea. Give me some ideas. He owns a ton of franchises,
He does.
tons.
Yeah.
Bought all these franchises and said, I'm putting in people. I'm going to teach them how to win, cheerlead them along the way. And it's worked for him. And so I'm like, gee, if Shaq can be a franchisee, so can so many people, and they need to understand the value of these proven systems. And that's entrepreneurship in a nutshell.
I love that. And it's so true. It's completely true, right? Shaq has a ton. I think Magic Johnson has a lot as well. He's done well in the franchise space as well.
Yeah, because a lot of these ex-pro athletes, they go out and they're like, what am I good at? I'm a leader. I'm a team builder. I love
Yeah.
solving problems on the field, whatever it is. They get to do the same thing in just a different way.
It's like you started the whole conversation, right? Business is a game. It was a game, right? And it's a game. It's a sport. I used to say this to people all the time: is that it's all a game. How you navigate this whole process, and the greater clarity you have, the better you get to play the game. I think so, at least.
Yeah, and when I look at my business and our businesses, having a vision. So in sports, it's what's our vision? Are we going to win the NBA championships?
Yeah.
Are we going to win this next game? What's the vision ahead of you? How do we build the team and find the right players? How do we get rid of the wrong players? How do we coach and evolve and practice to get better? I mean, they're very similar. So while I'm not a big sports guy, I love business. And every time I hear people who are passionate about sports, I go, we're the same.
Yep. It's true. I don't watch many sports today anymore, but I do love playoffs of all hockey, baseball, football. It doesn't matter. it's the playoff. It's that intensity that comes along inside the sport.
Yeah, I'm the same. While I'm not a big
Yeah.
sports guy, when the Olympics are on and
Yeah.
when, the women are in their gold medal round, Canada versus US last night, and Canada won, woo, like
There you go.
it's fun to watch it all come together. All their hard work
Yeah.
come together in a game. That's pretty cool.
My daughter is a big soccer fan, and we had a chance to go watch the World Cup a few
Oh,
years
wow.
ago in Paris, or just outside Paris, in Lyon, France.
Yeah, wow.
And we saw the whole gold medal match, and USA won. It was a whole thing, right? It was
Yeah.
for my daughter. We took the whole family. I bought tickets like 6 months in advance, and just hoping that they'd win. And at the end of it, I mean, obviously they won. It was fantastic, but it was the teamwork, and it was the people. Then how they came together and how they rally together. And I think that's what we're saying here today. And just kind of circle back as to how we began this whole conversation, is that with your grandparents' store, they taught you it was about people and humanity and serving people and taking care of them and giving them love. And that's what I think you have expressed to me in this conversation more than anything else.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. No, I love this conversation, and I love that it's just an organic flow of life. And what are we talking about today? And it leads us down a path where I get to reflect on some of the things that have worked and some of the interesting ideas. And so, yeah, thank you for this convo.
Absolutely. Where can people learn more about you? How can people get in connection with you? How can they learn more about the franchising business? If they want to grab a franchise, and then how does that all work with you? If they want to
Yeah, I'd
learn
say
more
if somebody goes to Google and just types in Brian Scudamore or any of our brands, they're going to find things. I've got a book. You might be able to see it there over my left shoulder. WTF, Willing to Fail. I wrote a book. It's been out about 3 years, bestseller, all about failure. And people don't like to talk about failure, but making mistakes is a key ingredient in any growth. And when I wrote the book, I realized, before I came up with the title, we talked about titles and names. It was mistake after mistake after mistake, but they all led me to bigger places. So anyways, it got me off on a tangent there, but there's the book, WTF. So just Google Brian Scudamore and you'll go to different properties of ours and see if something resonates, and social media, all that kind of stuff.
So what's the biggest failing success you've ever had?
Probably the biggest failure, I think, which was very paramount for my future years, and I didn't realize it at the time, was 5 years into the business, I fired my entire company, everybody. I had 11 people, $500,000 in revenue, and I realized I was not playing with the right team. They weren't optimistic. They weren't happy. They were complainers, and it was negative, and it just didn't work for me. I wasn't having fun at work anymore. And I get it was junk removal and it was just a job, but I would learn later it needed to be more than a job. And I got rid of, they say one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. I had, I think, 9 bad apples out of 11. And I wiped out the entire team. And I said to them, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I've let you down as your leader, didn't find the right people, treat you right, give you the love and support you need. And it's not going to work. So I went from 5 trucks down to just 1 truck is all I could operate on my own. I had to rebuild the business and learn that valuable lesson that it's all about people. It was a massive failure for me that really stung, but it taught me something and it made me better.
See, what I love about these podcasts, these shows, I love them because when I get to meet people like you and have conversations with people like you and some of the other people we've had, just great business success, the humility of it, right? And I'll say this, maybe to sound a little bit controversial, but at the same time, there's a lot of business owners who pretend to play business at a certain level. And there's guys like you who are humble enough to sit and say, here's my journey, here's my experience through business, but my failures along the same path. And I think there's a different echelon of people who really want to serve people, who actually are open to speak about their failures and just say, here's who I am, rather than the false accolades that most people like to put on, at least the social media side of it. So, that's valuable for people to understand that. And I just want to thank you for being real with that too.
Yeah, I think that's how I learn and grow. I know that if I confront my failures, and I'm not afraid to talk about them, because with our team, our people, I want them to go, okay, it's okay making the mistakes, but here's what I've done. Here's why I did it. Here's how I did it, what I've learned. And then you don't repeat a mistake. If you repeat a mistake, it's a choice. You don't want to choose to do that same thing again. And so it's learning from those mistakes and failures, but also accepting that it's a gift. Every failure I've had that I talked about in WTF is that willingness to fail taught me every single time something bigger and better that made me and us who we are today.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Scudamore, go get WTF. You thought it was what the fuck. So did I. What a great title. I got to tell you that. What a great title. Brilliant
Awesome.
title. Thank you for this conversation. I really appreciate it. Go look more into Brian Scudamore. He's an amazing individual. He's built 3 great companies in franchising, and I hope you get to learn more about him. I want to thank you all for being here. Brian, thank you especially for being here. And for everyone listening, remember, if you take charge of your life and learn to do what you want to do, there's nothing that can stop you. Rewire what's going on inside of your brain to get over the fears, overcome the obstacles, and realize that every failure you have rewired is the opportunity to get you to where you want to go. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm Dr. Alok Trivedi, aka Dr. Rewire. I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Hey guys, if you like that video, click on the link over here and you're going to love the next video.